What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video, and back in the Northeast. Been at some weddings and traveling recently, traveling back from Washington, which is why we had to skip this week's live stream and why today's video goes up a little bit later than usual. We're back in New Hampshire, so I'm going to be doing the Underdog live streams again starting next Tuesday, and then I'll be posting a bunch of private Underdog drafts as well. So check Twitter, check the Discord for access to those. And then I'm going to have a lot more time to start finishing up some of these mini projects for the website. So you guys are going to see those up soon. As for today, we have the best draft strategy when you have an early first round pick. We're going to call it an early pick 1 through 4 for this video. And we'll be keeping in mind, all the draft strategy research that we've done thus far this off season, but also considering, how, well, this season is unique. Every year is unique. And so what players exactly are we choosing from when we're picking from a top 4 spot? Also, I'm going to be assuming a standard setup: 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, 1 tight end. And I'm also going to assume half PPR scorings. There won't be that big of differences if you're considering like a full PPR league. In standard, you just basically have to take a bunch of running backs, but half and full PPR, not, huge differences, just lean a little bit more towards wide receiver in full PPR. So as you're going to see in this video, we're going to start off with a certain setup. Maybe you're switching one of those picks from a running back to wide receiver. Other than that, nothing major different. So let's start off with round 1. We know that quarterback and tight end is a no this early. It's just not optimal to do so. I don't really care how much you like, Josh Allen or Travis Kelce. You're not taking them in the early first round. So we know it's down to running back or wide receiver. We also know that running back early is optimal and that you should be willing to even reach one spot to get a running back, while wide receiver should probably be coming at a discount. Because of this, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey should be the first 2 picks off of boards in this format. After that, I have that big 3 of wide receiver: Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. This goes away from talking about if you take one of those wide receivers, it goes away from that rule of running back early, and it's going to impact how you draft the rest of the way through. And because of that, because basically this decision, if you're going with Taylor or McCaffrey, or you have a 3 or 4 pick and you can't go with those 2 and you have to take one of these wide receivers, because that's going to, completely change things, I'm going to start off the first few rounds and create 2 example teams for you guys to show how you can get back to a neutral build. And then the rest of the way through, it's going to be looking at 1 team. So that'll make sense in a second. We're going to start off with 1 build, assuming that we're taking Jonathan Taylor, and then 1 build, assuming we took Cooper Kupp. And we'll see what we do in the next few rounds to get back to even. Again, that next tier of running back, I personally think they're great, but I think they're a big step down. I think the 3 wide receivers, Kupp, Chase, Jefferson, should be taken ahead of those guys. So even though on average the data says running back early is optimal, I would still take those 3 wide receivers over the other guys. Round 2. So remember, we have 1 team with Jonathan Taylor, 1 team with Cooper Kupp. Your most likely options when you're looking at, now the back end of round 2 is Javonte Williams, Aaron Jones, Nick Chubb, Leonard Fournette, Saquon at running back, and then wide receiver, you're looking at that Lamb, Debo, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans range. At tight end, Kelce is probably not there. I think there's a chance that Mark Andrews is there. For this one, we're going to assume that he was also taken. I would say that if Kelce is there, you're probably taking him, and I'm totally fine taking Mark Andrews as well at this spot, but we're going to say that both of them are off the board. But again, both are really, really good picks at the tail end of round 2. Now for our wide receiver early team, you should be leaning running back with this pick, unless there's, again, Kelce's still on the board. There's huge value at the wide receiver position, and you want to start off, let's just say that Devonta Adams, just to throw out a name. Cooper Kupp you took in the first round. Devonta Adams is there in the next round. You're like, I've never even seen this in a mock draft. Nick says go with running back here, but Adams is on the board. We'll go with Adams. If one of, this elite tier of wide receivers falls way further than they should, and you can pair them with someone like Cooper Kupp, or if you went with Chase or Jefferson, still works for this. That's fine to do. Now you're going to have to alter the rest of the strategy, and it's not optimal. We're going over what's optimal in this video, but it's fine to do because it's not something that would usually happen. And if you're getting a crazy value, it's good. But in general, if you went with wide receiver in the early first round, you should probably be taking a running back. My top option on the board is Aaron Jones. Everyone's here is fantastic, but I think Jones has like a really good combination of just like floor and ceiling because like we know he's going to be used heavily, have plenty of receptions, plenty of touchdown upside. We know that even without Adams, the team's going to be good. And so I think Aaron Jones makes a lot of sense if you took Cooper Kupp in the first round. And honestly, even if you took Jonathan Taylor, I think that if you can get someone like Aaron Jones in round 2, I think that it's good to do so. It's the exact same thing as, if Kelsey fell, if Andrews there and you want him, if a wide receiver in tier 1 fell, you can always do that. But at the end of the day, starting off with Taylor and Aaron Jones would also be a fantastic option. And so end of the second round, we're going to do both picks, Aaron Jones. Third round. So we're looking at an early third round pick in this one. Top running backs on the board: Chubb, Fournette, Saquon. Top wide receivers: Tyreek Hill, Evans, and Keenan Allen. It is now very, very likely that Kelsey and Andrews are off the board, so we're not going to include them as well. And it's too early to take a quarterback, so we're not looking there. So again, running back or wide receiver. The data says that once you have 2 running backs, it is not optimal to take your third until at least round 4. So in our running back build, we are going to go with a wide receiver, and that pick's going to be Mike Evans. He's a top option in my rankings. In the other build, we know that we have 1 running back and 1 wide receiver through 2 rounds. Running back is still optimal, and so we're going to take our top running back, and that's Saquon. So now, both of our builds have 2 running backs and 1 wide receiver through 3 rounds. One has Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, and Mike Evans. The other, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Jones, and Saquon. This is the setup that I would personally recommend you do with an early first round pick. You have a ton of flexibility in the middle rounds after this start, and you've begun with an optimal setup looking historically over the last 7 years. In rounds 4 and 5, you're likely splitting running back and wide receiver, but Pitts and Waller can come into play if you can't find value, and that is what I mean by flexibility. If you start off 2 running backs and a wide receiver, it allows you to play the ADP game with value. Skipping running back, skipping wide receiver, skipping both in round 4 is totally fine to do. But had you started off with multiple wide receivers, you kind of have to take a running back in round 4. Had you started off with a billion running backs, well, now you kind of have to take wide receiver. And if you have to do something in round 4, there is still a chance that there was a massive run before your pick, and now you're getting really, really bad value with the pick. If you start off 2 running back, 1 wide receiver, it really doesn't matter. I would say don't go with quarterback optimally. You want to at least wait until round 5, but generally around 6 through 9. But if you see value at running back, value at wide receiver, value at tight end, you can just grab that. You're not forced to take a certain position, which can kind of leave you behind. I would say, though, one thing with Waller I kind of mentioned, if Pitts is gone in round 4, I would just wait until 5 because your 4 or 5 pick is going to be late 4th, snake around into the early 5th round. I'd rather just take Waller in the 5th and kind of just take your favorite running back or wide receiver in round 4 just because it is likely if Pitts was off the board, he was just off the board, and I would prefer that you get a little bit more value with Waller, and I would rather just take a chance. If someone takes Waller, it's really not the end of the world. Just double dip at a position, take 1 and 1. I would rather wait until the 5th round to take Waller, basically what I'm saying there. Players that I would love to get in this round 4 pick are Cam Akers, Travis Etienne, Zeke, Pitts, Breece Hall, Pittman, DJ Moore, and Mike Williams. I would be happy with any one of them, and as of right now in half PPR scoring, that is the order I take them in. I would say it's unlikely that Cam Akers or Zeke are available at this pick. Again, it's a late 4th round, and while Etienne technically, given current ADPs, is someone you can get at that spot, I think once training camp opens, once we see preseason games, once more people start drafting and realizing that Etienne's a really good pick, that I don't think he's going to end up being available at this spot. And so I'm going to cross him off as well. So no Akers, no Zeke, no Etienne for this pick. So with this pick, we're going to go with Kyle Pitts on both teams. And actually, like I said to start the video, we're going to now at this point, for the rest of the way through the draft, we're going to say the exact same pick. To start, things were different. Because we started with a running back in one and a wide receiver in the other, we had to change our strategy through round 3. But once we got to that 2 running back, 1 wide receiver build, now things are at least effectively even. You can't like really make up that running back value just because Jonathan Taylor and McCaffrey, like, they're so far ahead of the other running backs. So like you'd have to take a lot of running backs in a row to really make up that value, and then you lose out on other positions. So I would just say, if you started off wide receiver, you grab 2 running backs in 2 and 3, we can say it is effectively even, that you can kind of go with like a neutral build after that. So that's what I'll do for this video. And then at the end, I'm going to post both teams at the end of it. I'll show you that, Mike Evans, Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley build. But again, we're going to assume both of them draft the same the rest of the way out. If you wanted to go hero RB with the running back one, that is fine. But for those of you who are going to ask about that, it does not come out optimal. So it is something you can do, kind of like the RB0 strategy, but there's strategies to implement when you see significant value in doing so. So if you had started off with Jonathan Taylor and then you wanted to go hero RB, don't force hero RB, do it. And hero RB, for those of you who don't know, it's taking a running back really early in the first round and then abandoning it for a long time, effectively going RB0, but having that top end running back. It is, again, not optimal to do this. This is an optimal strategy build that we're doing in this video. But if you wanted to do that, if, like I said, Devonta Adams is there in 2, and then Mark Andrews falls to 3, and then an insane wide receiver is there in 4, and you're like, I got to take this value, that's when I do it. I wouldn't force that sort of build. So again, I'm going to refer to our Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, Mike Evans, Kyle Pitts build moving forward. So we're going the same way for both those teams. So round 5, we've got 2 running backs, 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end. We are just outside of the optimal quarterback range. It is fine to take quarterback in round 5 if we'll just say that like Herbert or Mahomes fell to you. But in general, you kind of want to wait until 6 through 9. And then we already have a tight end, so we're obviously not going with a second tight end. So again, another running back and wide receiver pick. Our favorite options in this range: Breece Hall, David Montgomery, DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, and Mike Williams. Running back and wide receiver are both optimal to draft here, so we can really choose either one of them. Having said that, there's a clear drop off in running back talent outside of this range, and while wide receiver gets worse, there are still plenty of elite options left. So I would recommend running back in this spot, and I think that's why it's important to look at the optimal strategies article, to look at all those charts on the website, but to understand that there's more to it than just that. Yes, either one is optimal, but you need to look ahead, think about what are you going to get at the next spot, and say, oh, I see this year a significant drop off at this position, and so it's better for me, since again both are actually optimal, to lean towards running back here, because after this pick there's going to be a really big drop. So I'm going to take Breece Hall with this pick through 5 rounds. Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, Breece Hall, Mike Evans, Kyle Pitts. At the 6-7 turn, it will be fine to draft a running back, but it won't be helping our team at all, and it's like slightly suboptimal to do so. And since we have a lot of running backs, we have 3 of them already, we only have 1 wide receiver, I would recommend double dipping at that 6-7 turn. Your top options are likely Courtland Sutton, Allen Robinson, Mooney, Judy, Marquise Brown, Gabriel Davis, Brandon Cooks, Mona St. Brown, and Chris Godwin. I would feel good about your chances at getting Mooney or St. Brown in this spot, and so I'm going to go with them as our double dip. So now our wide receivers are Mike Evans, Darnell Mooney, and Mona St. Brown. At the 8-9 turn, wide receiver and tight end are suboptimal. We now have 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end already. Grabbing a 4th wide receiver is not optimal. Grabbing a 2nd tight end is not optimal. We are now also in the optimal range for quarterback, and then running back, now that we have 3 in this range, is optimal to go back to. So it works out really, really nicely. Let's go running back and quarterback here. Running back top options are probably Clyde, Sanders, and Damian Harris. Quarterbacks, Dak, Wilson, and Stafford. You could double dip if you wanted to go, say, Clyde and Sanders. Say, I don't know that either one of them is going to work out, but I think that maybe one of them can, or you could add in, honestly, Harris there as well. Basically saying, I'm going to take 2 shots here. I have 3 that I feel good about. If I grab Clyde and Sanders, it could really work out to where if one of them ends up being, high end 2, I'm just locked and loaded at the running back position. I don't have to worry about that much later. I would say to that, just take your favorite, take that shot. Taking your 5th running back here is a little bit too early to do so. You've already got 4 great options. You've already potentially got Jonathan Taylor on the team, and if not, you've got 2 really good 2nd and 3rd round picks. And so I would lean towards saying, okay, I'm going to grab Miles Sanders, and then I'm going to take my favorite quarterback. Just kind of builds, a higher ceiling team. And also you've got that turn. You don't know what's going to happen over these next 2 rounds. You're drafting really early in what would be the 9th round, and then the whole 9th round goes by, the whole 10th round goes by. There's a chance that we see a big run at the quarterback position, and that Dak, Wilson, Stafford, even like your Trey Lance, Aaron Rodgers, like all these guys come off the board, and then you're kind of stuck with like a much lesser option at quarterback. So again, I would go with Miles Sanders, and then I would go with Russell Wilson at the next pick, kind of looking at where ADPs fall. So through 9 rounds, you've got your starting lineup filled out. Russell Wilson, Jonathan Taylor, Aaron Jones, Mike Evans, Mooney or St. Brown, really just going to depend on like the matchup with that one. Kyle Pitts, Breece Hall in the flex, and then a bench of whichever one you're not starting between Mooney and St. Brown, and then Miles Sanders. From this point on, you're just filling out your bench. You're leaning a bit more towards wide receiver in full PPR, running back in standard, even builds, I guess, in half PPR. If you have 6 bench spots, then you're either taking a backup quarterback or tight end, really just taking the backup of whichever one you drafted later. So for us, we drafted Wilson after Pitts, and so you would grab a backup quarterback. If you have 7 or more bench spots, you can take both a backup quarterback and a backup tight end. You don't need to do either of these. If you feel really good about Kyle Pitts, or if you drafted Kelsey or Andrews, you're not taking a backup tight end. And honestly, if you drafted Pitts and you feel really good about that, you don't need to draft a backup tight end. But most of the time, it is optimal. If you've got 7, 8, 9 bench spots, take your backup quarterback, take your backup tight end. We're really good at predicting breakouts, especially at the quarterback position later in drafts. And so it's really good. It's beneficial to your team over time to take that backup. But again, for our team, if we had to take one, we would probably take a backup to Russell Wilson. Remember, always take defense and kicker if you play in leagues with kickers in the last 2 rounds. There is no exception to that unless you're in a scoring format that's like wildly different than normal. If things are like relatively normal, they're not boosting defense, they're not boosting kicker, please take them in the last 2 rounds. And then remember to have some combination of early breakouts and late breakouts on your bench. You need some players that you could drop early in the season if it turns out they don't have as good of a role as you anticipated, because those are the weeks early in the year where you're going to find league winners on free agency. I will end this video here by showing you the completed example draft from both of the teams. Again, the only differences between the 2 teams are that in the first 3 rounds, one starts off with running back, one starts off with wide receiver, and we see how that kind of changes things. I'll also post on the screen like what my team grade assistant has for a grade for each of these teams. But the final picks after Miles Sanders were Kadarius Toney, Robert Woods, Nyheim Hines, Tua, Gus Edwards, and then just really any defense. I picked the Colts in this one, but it's not overly important. If you want to use the team grade tool along with the rankings, optimal strategy articles and charts, player notes, projections, access to the private Discord, a whole lot more, you can see all of that at my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. I'll be back tomorrow. Aaron Jones versus Saquon versus Leonard Fournette. Friday, top 5 league-winning running backs. That, my friends, is it in this one. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting the like button? How about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.